What's up, everyone? So I wanted to do a quick rant video here. It's something I think about a lot, which is developer productivity. So I don't know if you've ever joined a large company. Typically when you join a large company or you join a company that has a large product that's been under development for a while, let's say, usually you end up with something that has just there's a lot of code, there's a lot of tools, you've got a lot of engineers build and rebuild things. There's stuff that's deprecated, stuff that's new. They're always trying to, make things faster, simpler. But I find that it's quite the opposite in many cases. I think that, I've joined various companies that are fairly large at this point, and you go in and they say, okay, here's how you get set up, and there's some document, there's some people there to help, or maybe they'll have a code lab, or maybe they'll have again some documentation. First of all, without fail, almost every time when you're setting up your computer, in every case that I've seen, and these are large companies, these are multi-billion-dollar companies, some of them are public companies. You hit snags, you try and set up your computer, there's something goes wrong, there's some script that's that you're running to get set up. It doesn't matter if it's a mobile product or it's a server or something like that. You always hit something, and then you got to ask someone for help. And who do you go to, right? So first you got to find someone. This rant now is turning into something about just onboarding in general, but nevertheless, it's never really smooth, right? You don't just show up for day one, and go and you walk up to your desk and then you start building whatever you're supposed to build. There's always something that you got to overcome in that initial phase, and that sucks. Whether that's because documentation is out of date, or there's other dependencies on tools or things or frameworks that are have been updated and therefore they don't work with the system that you're working on. Whatever it is, you're always going to hit something, and that's just terrible. I think there should be more investment in making sure that every single week our tools, our onboarding tools, our setup scripts, all that sort of thing, is it actually are they working, right? And now I know it sucks. It's like for someone to have to go back and do that, but go back and make sure. And also I know there's many different tools and different setups, so a lot can go wrong, right? Or if you're an iOS developer, maybe you got to set up Xcode and all these other tools, and or if you're a Android developer, you have to set up all these things, or server, maybe there's certain services you're using and certain services are not kept up to date. I get all that, but it just sucks is all I want to say. And we do this to ourselves, right? And again, the more complex a system grows, the more likely this stuff is going to happen. The more mature things get, you'd expect the inverse, but no, it's actually oftentimes even harder to get set up. So I don't know if that's different at maybe a place you work where onboarding's great. You just fire something up, run a couple of scripts, and off you go. But we're hiring people to do a job. Usually people are, you come in, you're an iOS developer, you're used to spinning up projects, you're used to coding in languages that you're comfortable with. And that brings me to my next point, which is a lot of times these larger companies, they have large code bases. So what do? Right? They find ways to split up the code base. They find ways to abstract things away. And therefore, what I find is that a lot of things just slow down, right? You get on, you load up the project, and what happens? It takes 2 minutes to even get things displaying, and then they has to build the project or index the files. And don't even get me started on IntelliJ, right? Actually, let's talk about IntelliJ. So recently I've had to load up a large project, and I bring it up in IntelliJ, and in this case it's an Android code base, one big Android code base. And it first of all, okay, one-time setup, I get set up, everything's good. And then it goes to index all the files, and I'm sitting there for 5 minutes just for it to let me do anything, right? I get the spinny beach ball and I'm sitting there. Okay, fine. So that happens, and then I start writing some code, and I want to add a new dependency, or I want to change, add a dependency on another library within that code base. Okay, so or even add a new file. And then I got to run another script, which then regenerates the project files, because again, the project is too big in general. So they're doing interesting things just to make sure that that it can manage all these projects, because there's so many files, and it's just bringing your computer to a halt. Now these computers are only getting faster and faster, but yet we just find ways to abstract, to build tools that are just so demanding on our system that when you're coding, you can't even focus on the thing you're meant to do, right? It's like, okay, I know how to build this thing. I know how to go and write this code. I have it in my mind. I want to build this screen or this or whatever. And then what? You get hit by some random library or tool isn't compiling, or there's some dependency, or there's some broken thing that happens. And then you're like, well, now what do I do, right? You end up restarting or rebuilding and wasting hours just trying to get to a point where you can get the thing working again. And then, of course, you don't know who to go to, or the documentation's out of date. Like, this is crazy. And we do this to ourselves. And it's just got to stop. Like, I think developer productivity, developer speed is everything. And now, let's just say everything does work now. Well, okay, so let's say I build a thing, and then I have to build the project to be able to see it running. Okay. In many cases, because the project is so big, that can take minutes just to make a change and to see it. Right now, I know we have all these tools that work great. If you load up a new Swift 5 application, you get the nice preview window, and that works fine. But guess what? Once you have a large project, that just goes out the window. And then when you have abstractions on top of that don't even work with that system, you can't even use that anymore. So you're stuck relaunching the application, which again, probably takes 5 minutes or something to do. Now what? Here's what your loop looks like. You make a change, you do something, and then you wait to see those results on the screen. What do you do for that 5 minutes? When you make a change and your computer just comes to a halt, what are you supposed to do? Okay, let's say the whole computer doesn't come to a halt, but it's reindexing or it's building. You open up Chrome, you start reading the news. This is the absolute worst thing that we can do as programmers, where we have to focus. It takes however much time to even get in the zone, and when you break out of that, you're losing context, and it takes whatever it is, 10, 20 minutes to get back into it. And so this is just terrible. Imagine it takes 5 minutes just to do one little loop versus, let's say, 5 seconds. If it's only 5 seconds or a number of seconds or whatever, you can stay in it, you can stay with it, you can make changes, you can see them, and you're getting this constant feedback loop. Anything longer than that, I mean, I've worked at projects. I remember when I was at Google, this is a long time ago, 2008, we were dealing with Google Web Toolkit, which is Java code that was compiled into JavaScript. We had a large code base. This is for Google Wave. Actually, this is before Google Wave, but Google Wave did that as well. Anyway, we had a large code base of this Java code that gets compiled down. You can't use all the tools that we have today when you just have JavaScript. It's loaded in the browser, or you maybe have, you have other tools that are watching the JavaScript and recompiling it into pure JavaScript. Let's say Babel into JavaScript, whatever it is, TypeScript into JavaScript, and then you have watch files, you have hot reload. Like, that stuff kind of works. But when you do something like Java into JavaScript, you lose all those tools. And you're dealing with Eclipse or IntelliJ, which is slow as shit, and you make changes, UI changes, and you can't see them fast. This was back in 2008. I remember this loop was terrible. When you're learning something new, you need to be able to tinker with it. You need to be able to make changes and see them in real time. If you can't do that, you're wasting hours, and that's just money money left on the table. You multiply that by a number of engineers that have to deal with that. No wonder that companies, when they have a small application or small app or whatever, they have 80 plus engineers to do anything, because it takes to build one feature, it takes an entire week, or let's say one screen or something, an entire week or 2 weeks of one engineer's time, because half the time is just spent building and waiting, and it's just awful. Now, that's not to say there are a lot of tools, a lot of languages that are pretty fast. I like using Go. I've seen large Go code bases though that just buckle when it comes time to build. That sucks. If you can do anything to make that faster, in your own within your own application or service or whatever you're building, making sure that you're not whatever it is, you're not using too many. For me, I just like to use, I used to use Sublime, now I use VS Code. I find that a lot of Python projects, Go projects, these sorts of things are generally fast. You're not dealing with Xcode or IntelliJ that's doing God knows what just to display the code and all the bells and whistles that come around it. The more tools you add on top, more IntelliSense and the auto suggest and all these, and indexing and all these sorts of things that are the processes that are running while you're writing code only slows things down. And then you have many dependencies, and that it's having to index and crawl all of those as well, so you can get, let's say, jump to definition type of stuff. which is great, by the way. I love it. But like, the more we rely on our IDEs for things like, application, Java or Kotlin or whatever, the more we rely on our IDEs to help us with these sorts of things, the slower the IDEs get, and like the slower we get. It's just crazy. Now I understand these abstractions are good, and there's probably benefits to them, but anyway, it's just terrible. It's one of the worst things, and we just keep doing this. Like, tools aren't getting any faster. Yeah, we have like nice hot reload stuff in JavaScript world, but then again, once it gets sufficiently complex, you can throw that out the window. So anyway, I'm just ranting a little bit because I've been feeling that pain lately. It just really sucks when you know you know how to build things, you know what you need to do, and you just get stuck by the tools or your computer. It makes you feel like you need a supercomputer just to do anything. It's just no fun, right? I mean, if everything were fast, we get these fast real-time loops, and we can see things quickly, we can iterate fast. I think that's when we're our most happy, when we're building things as engineers. So anyway, just think about that a little bit, I guess. And I'd be curious to hear if you deal with the same things, whether it's at your job or you've seen this before, or you think I'm crazy. What am I just ranting for nothing? Are these abstractions good and we just have to deal with it? Anyway, let me know. Feel free to leave a like, comment, please. That's what I like the most. I love to hear from everyone. So anyway, this was just a little quick video that I decided to rant before I go back to, while I'm waiting for something to build. Thanks.